Good evening. So, hi, I am Kim Lohse, and I firstly want to thank the International Poetry Library of San Francisco. And if you guys don't know what the library is doing, you should take some time to figure out how they're bringing immense amounts of poetry to San Francisco and bolstering our community. It's really fantastic. And Kim, who introduced me, is heading it up. She's somebody that you should speak to a little more about it. And thank you also to Kim Adonacio for inviting me to share her stage. So last night was Valentine's Day, and many of us have different feelings about Valentine's Day, but I thought I would start with a love poem and then rapidly digress. How's that? So, first poem I have is called Triolet. Mi vida, he whispered, then tongued his lips. She wished she knew how she loved him. His hand down her blouse, his on her hip. Te necesito, he growled while biting her lip. This barely seemed like a courtship. In her head, she heard a childhood hymn, and then she knew that she loved him. Te quiero, she stammered, but he muffled her lips. After litany. Why look down in shame, as though even a glance must be stuffed inward? Don't be alone, I'm told. Tilt, lean toward or against something. Why must we include the sun when praising the moon, or include the other stars, as in sun and moon, the moon and the stars? What does light learn when it touches freshly turned earth? Her cracked feet roughened by soil while men scraped skies with their phalluses and rockets. First, there must be suffering if there's to be compassion. See what red does to the heart, silk to the loins, kissing to anyone? We dream alone, loneliness the inverse of universe. My one companion, a clock, with its ceaseless chatter, clicking off a wasted life. What light remembers each morning, it slowly forgets. We wait all day for the light to fall out of the sky, sensing that something is happening. It is. I lay down in a hole and praise the moon, again the thirsty earth. So, in a anti-Valentine's spirit, the next poem is written while I was getting a divorce, so it has a little theme to it there. This one's called In Egypt. In Egypt, no one looks at the paprika sunset because men believe that time never shrinks, although women understand a different truth. It is the only truth. Time is shrinking. Women understand cycles, flooding, the moon, war. What truth, what time? Which country forced to live in its past? Men piss against the houses, each stone set against earth. The scuffed earth of the effort blows west. Something built, something bigger forlorn. Spaces between the stones are growing. Erosion, corrosion, a wicked bandit. Heavy sun turning forever away behind the horizon, taking with it what is burned through, the water gone from the space where the men washed one another, where women washed everything else. So I have a dear friend, Maureen Oslop, who lives in Palm Springs, and this next poem is about LA. It's a little anti-LA, and she always asks me to read this poem. So this one's for Maureen. It's called So Much More is Happening in Palm Springs These Days, but this is LA. Night is a sack stuffed with bones and glass. Smell of tar and coconut oil like Chanel No. 5 all over Paris. Taste of bottled water dissolving vitamin pills. The sky, the color of blue weight. drone of freeway and plains, scent of being lost. A woman too small in her saggy skin, color of a football, whites of her eyes browned under her fried hair, under her neon pink baseball cap, over the halter top and yoga pants, rollerblades to work, a smoothie bar. Aren't all women aged against their wills? Except Carla, who also has brown skin, but just feels old at La Paz Taqueria on Wiltshire Boulevard. If the surf's up, the mountains will bite down to steady themselves against the traffic to the shore. But the mountains have not bitten down, and the surf has never really been up. If a big wave came in, it would wipe out everything. Gaudy La Brea saber-toothed tigers who once prowled Rodeo Drive have gone missing to excerpts on California's standardized tests, along with the Spanish missions. A surfboard is a raft against this current. Carla wraps her last foiled burrito and takes a sledgehammer to the family restaurant. A small earthquake the rest of the valley misses. Glass will land once the night is wrapped far enough open. Mud consumes Pacific Coast Highway winterly, but it should swallow the urgent care center across from Pepperdine University, which mostly does Botox treatments. The basin taken into the faults, ay Dios mío, ay no está paz. Flowers will stretch and yawn, the glass glittering on their cheekbones as they start their yoga in the desert sage. A star will slide through the night and the sun will step back off the land. The city will finally be cool. I once heard in a poetry class that a poet shouldn't ask a question in a poem unless he provides the answer. I'm not going to do that. This one's called Sky. It has another marriage theme. I tried to go for love, but I kept coming back to this. And you'll see also that I'm a Californian, and I can't help it. If I was to do my life over again, I'd probably be a geologist, a seismologist, or something to do with rocks, and yet I've never actually taken a geology class. I think as Californians, we grow up with the shaking, we grow up with the understanding, we look out and we can see fault lines and we understand them and we're not scared, and I think that metaphor is deep, deep in my bones. Sky. What if we didn't really like the sound of a train in the distance? Or a hamlet with an old man riding his timeless bicycle and a grass basket on the handlebars down the one lane? Fields all around, crisp air burning. What if we could stop the mountains from growing and the oceans from washing them away? 12 feet of crumbling cliff, traveling the bay lip in an afternoon and then becoming a farm valley after the oceans have parted and God has spoken. But his isn't the last word, as the farmer will reach into that bit of cliff and place a seed so tiny it sticks to his hand, a dimpled mound smoothed over with hope and carefulness, a gesture so pure it has been repeated many times. No one really knows when the first seed was planted, or even when it first sprouted and died. A farmer's wife has had to find something else to feed her children while her husband stood outside, looking at the soil, trying to discover what went wrong. When the husband came to the table hoping for a meal he could not be possible, a failure at his one pursuit, what if his wife could not put aside her anger? Even a worthless mother, he said, could have baked more bread than this. But what if marriage, which glues everything, was finally ridiculous enough to release the wife? And what if these farms were communities where anyone could sit at the table? What if someone sitting there showed us that the sky and the clouds were false and dangerous, eroding in their antiquity, not yet threadbare enough to show the stars, which were always trying to peek into the brain of the wife, a steel trap, we were told, the husband defiant, substituting pride for confidence, the wife's mouth always shut, substituting harmony for pride. Her love still flowing outward, filling up the little home and also filling up the little seated dimples at night while her husband slept. What if this hill wasn't being sent south and that one over the fault line wasn't going north? What if this milk skin of land stopped floating around on the churning mantle? This next poem has all true things in it from media, and it's perhaps a little bit disjointed at times, so if you can bear with it to the end, I feel like it does come together at the end. But all of the stories in this particular poem are true, and it's called Clock Towers. The random clanging starts to semble a tune. I almost know it. Earth rubbing against itself, the cutting edge of California racing at the same rate as a fingernail growing. Those were not bells. That was a music box next door. This is madness. Earth tilting, sliding night from day. The tune is starting to sound familiar. The bells are still. Suppose the churches do not have bells, like the rain does not come until the fall here. But there is something about the day moon, like someone had flicked on a switch. Is this wisdom? Birds raised their beaks at the sound, a child's face in the door. One man carries another man home. And somehow we are always at odds with our bodies, which remain indifferent to our minds, a marriage under negotiation and direct maintenance. Nothing is false in a skeleton. Like sitting on a plow, watching the earth unfold, or seeing the cracked egg of a house after an earthquake turned inside out, secret life oozing into the yard like the innards of a cat on the side of the road. No one wants to stop to see this. No one wants to notice the smell. We don't know how this happened. Snarling houses, humming houses, silent houses. The sins flow out. A dice player, loaded, bag of tricks. No one should look at something like that. Yet here is Jesus bleeding on a cross. A woman gives birth in the subway stairwell. People pass by, annoyed she would go into labor during the rush hour. She looked homeless, but was pregnant with triplets. A high school teacher took off his shirt and wrapped it around the first baby. Still on his knees, shirtless, delivering the other two with no skills and now late to work, no one called an ambulance. He was black. The thin skin of her belly cracked, rubbing, itching, moving over the molten insides. I'm not sure if they are red. There again, a tremor. So I was just telling a story to a friend of mine. My dad is from Queens. He's a New Yorker. And I was born outside of Philly, but mostly grew up in California and returned to New York much later as an adult. But I feel like there's New York in me. And at the same time, I'm German, and Lohse is actually Lohse, and it means, unfortunately, loose, which was not fun when other students found that out about me. And so this story is called Lost Apple, and it goes through a number of ideas about Apple and about my own parentage. And I am the mother of an almost 10-year-old daughter who is half Mexican and half German English. Lost Apple. I take one from the pyramid stacked on the wooden shelf, tossing it from hand to hand, and walk through the thick, floppy plastic strips draping the deli door. What a strange visit back this has been. We couldn't find the drugstore on Myrtle Avenue, the one in the Browning photo of my father sipping an ice cream soda with his sister. She wasn't severe yet, and my father was always her best joker. He coyly grins even in this picture. At what age did he begin to weep so easily or about so much? When did he start forgetting our names? The archaic ring of the cash register sounds like Apfel, one of the few German words my grandmother knew. How could she manage so much German pride, even born in New York, second generation? What she really loved was family, and I'm ashamed to be German. My dad says all his tantas and neighbors in Queens scrub the stoops and sidewalks with buckets of detergent water right out to the middle of the road every morning on hands and knees. I wonder if that same competition started in the old country. Johann Lohse was sold on the old slave blocks in Virginia to pay for his passage, even as Grant was president. He was indentured during the Reconstruction. In Steinau, while sweeping the small house, was his mother one of the peasants who clucked to the Grimm brothers of raping wolves in thick forests, or the mannequin who tricked the miller's daughter? Was she the one who told of the jealous queen and her beautiful daughter, Schneewittchen, revealing the language key the brothers needed for their law? Maybe, while she harvested the root vegetables, nails and hands thick with the land, Johann slipped away from his mother, his small village, his chores, his imminent life as a farmer, and walked the dusty path, scattering the crows from the fields. Perhaps he then anxiously paced the stern of the boat, waiting for America, watching for what he hoped to outrun. His hope loped toward an unseen shore. He couldn't know his nephews would follow him, or that his grandson, Edward, would be drafted by his new country in 2 wars, or that his new family would lose his language. In the cab to the airport for our flight back to San Francisco, rushing through the stacked brown brick homes along the Long Island Expressway, I take the apple from its crackling plastic bag and place it in the hand of my Sarah's 2 open hands as she sits on my pop's lap, a lap so fragile now, his body disappearing inside his withered skin, the bones hollowing. He pretends to bite it as she yanks it just out of reach, and looking at him with his same cheeky eyes, "No manzana, Tanda, no manzana." Please don't die, Father. Thank you.